Hello my friends, in this video we will be taking a look at the Aurasamodian results, predicted phenotype traits, and G25 results of a late Iron Age Celtic individual from the east of France, from Grand Est in France, in this region right here. So this individual lived in the 2nd century before the Common Era, and with the G25 the most similar modern ethnicities to this individual are French people from the north of France, Belgians, French people from Paris, French people from Normandy, Belgians once again, French people from Brittany, people from Switzerland, Germans, Austrians, in that order. So all the most similar people to this individual ethnically are modern day Northern French people. This individual's mitochondrial lineage is J1C, and this individual's Y DNA is R1B. R1B is a paternal lineage that's very, very common for Western Europeans today. Unfortunately, I was not able to determine a more precise subclade for this person. There is simply not enough information in this file to determine a more precise subclade, but R1B is this individual's Y-DNA. So let's go ahead and dive deeper into the results and see what this individual resembles in terms of their appearance and their traits, their genetics. So first we're going to start with Nashakot calculator results. So it looks like this individual has hazel or green eyes, most likely hazel or green eye color. Although blue eyes with a neighbor center ring are also quite possible, brown eyes are also quite possible. Blue eyes are also quite possible. So it's not a very precise prediction, but most likely this individual has hazel eye color or green. Most likely sort of an intermediate eye color for this individual. For hair color, it looks like most likely this individual has dark blonde or light brown hair. Probably doesn't have black hair, probably doesn't have red hair, but we can't really decide whether it's dark brown, light brown, or dark blonde. Out of these three groups, it could be either one of these three. It is probably not light blonde, it is probably not black, it is probably not red. So it could be anywhere from dark blonde to dark brown in terms of the hair color. For skin color, it looks like this individual most likely has olive or Mediterranean skin tone. White skin is also quite possible. Light brown skin is also quite possible as well at 11%. Dark brown skin is not possible. Palest skin is also quite impossible. So there is a stereotype that Celtic people are very light and pale in terms of skin tone, but it looks like this individual has rather olive pigmentation of skin instead. For the hair texture, it looks like this person has wavy, curly, or straight hair. Most likely wavy hair. Curly comes second place, and straight hair comes third place. Probably doesn't have kinky hair. For nose shape, this individual most likely has a snub-shaped nose. Greek-shaped nose. Also, 37% odds for Greek-shaped nose is quite high, but still, most likely this individual has a snub-shaped nose at 62% likelihood. For coloring-related variants found in the file, it looks like they have two light color variants in all these variations in HERC2, which is definitely predisposing them to have light pigmentation of eyes. And hair, they have blue eye haplotype 2, they do not have blue eye haplotype 3, and unfortunately no genotype for blue eye haplotype 1. So we don't really know that. That is not in the file. They do have heterozygous genotype in this variation, so we might expect heterozygous genotype in BH1, but we don't know that for sure. And we do know for sure that they do not have BH3, and we do know for sure that they do have BH2. So this is actually in the file. So it looks like they have two light color variants in these variations of SLC45A2. So this is some predisposition to light pigmentation of eyes, hair, and skin, mostly hair, but also eyes and skin as well. What's interesting, they don't have any light color variants here, which is kind of unusual for Europeans, but whatever. No light pigmentation variants in this variation of IRF4, so no predisposition to being ginger, light pigmentation of eyes, and light color of skin, but most Europeans have the same genotype here. It's actually kind of rare to have light color variants here, and it peaks in like Irish people, and it's also found in the northeast of Europe as well, but it's kind of a typical genotype to have zero light color variants in this variation, so nothing too surprising here. And no ginger variants in MC1R, so no predisposition to red hair in MC1R gene. Alright, quite typical stuff. Let's close this and let's see the phenotype oracle. Let's see what phenotypes this individual most likely matches. And the phenotype that is most close to this individual is actually alpinid, which is very typical for French people. So, I mean, it makes sense. This individual resembles French people out of Somali, and the phenotype that is most close to it is, I guess, a Northern French kind of phenotype, alpinid with light eye color. To me, it is a very Northern French phenotype. The second phenotype is kind of exotic. Certainly, there's definitely, especially the man, I would say, looks very French as well. There is certainly a lot of Europeans who look like the man, but the woman looks very exotic. I don't know if there's Europeans who look exactly like that woman. There's definitely European women who resemble her, but looking exactly like this with these types of features would be pretty rare for Europeans because there's something about her that's a little bit exotic looking for Europeans. But anyway, the third phenotype is once again looking very French, but more so Southern French, I would say, because of the thicker eyebrows. Also darker eye color, I would say olive green or hazel eye color and brown hair. And for the mixture phenotype oracle looks like the closest phenotype mixture is a mixture of 50% this, which is kind of exotic looking, but also white. I would say off-white looking people plus 50% typical white French people. The second closest mixture is 50% typical northern French people plus 50% typical southern French people. And the third closest mixture is 50% typical northern French people plus 50% typical southern French people, but with curly hair. I think that's the best way to summarize this phenotype oracle. So the closest mixture is 50% off-white plus 50% northern French phenotype. The second closest mixture is 50% northern French typical plus 50% southern French. And the third closest mixture is 50% northern French plus 50% southern French, but with curly hair. Write in the comments. Do you agree with my summary? Do you think I let him cook, or did I overcook it? Let me know in the comments. All right, let's go ahead and look in the biomarkers. What this person scores, what this individual scores for the biomarkers. So it looks like he has above average predisposition to vitamin D levels, which is pretty good. Above average levels of LDL cholesterol, which is bad. Below average levels of HDL cholesterol, which is also bad. Above average level of glucose, which is okay. Well, it's not. It's not okay. It's kind of bad, but it's still within the general like average range, so it's all right. Slightly above average level of hemoglobin, which is all right. Below average blood pressure, which is good. Looks like average level of iron in the blood. I can't figure out from this score if they have hemochromatosis variants or not, if they have the Celtic curse or not. So we're gonna have to look in the panel and see. No variants for looks like average level of sex hormone binding globulin in blood. Looks like average for red blood cell count in blood. Looks like slightly below average for telomere length, so slightly below average for lifespan. And looks like above average for height, so slight predisposition to being taller, which is definitely very good to see. Okay, let's close that and look at the polygenic risk scores. Let's check this out. So for the polygenic risk scores, it looks like this individual, he has a below average odds for kidney stones. He has nothing found for hemoglobin E disease, below averages for migraine, above averages for lupus. He's got a below averages for gout. He's got below averages for thyroid cancer. He's got above averages for eczema. Looks like below averages for exfoliation glaucoma, slightly above averages for pigmentary glaucoma. And we see risk variants here, two common risk variants. So that's why he's scoring above average for that. Makes sense. And nothing was found for open angle or primary congenital glaucoma, which makes sense. Definitely very below average score for polycystic ovary syndrome, which is really good. Above average score for cataracts. Very low score for age-related macular degeneration. Very high score for rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. We're not going to look this up because we already know what we're going to see. So we're just going to remember that he's scoring very high for rheumatoid arthritis. He's got below average score for Tourette's. He's got below average score for epilepsy, very low score for epilepsy. He's got average score for asthma, slightly above average. He's got below average score for leukemia. He's got average score for vitiligo. He's got below average score for myopia. He's got above average score for corneal astigmatism, below average score for primary biliary cirrhosis, below average score for stroke, above average score for male pattern hair loss. So he's definitely a little bit predisposed to male pattern hair loss, which is very typical for Europeans. Europeans are certainly a little bit predisposed to this type of issue. So pretty much average for everything: deep vein thrombosis, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, all that is average. Atrial fibrillation a little bit above average, but that's nothing too surprising. Looks like type 2 diabetes is average as well, but type 1 diabetes risk score is way above average. So let's actually look that up and see if that's because of HLA genotype or what contributed to that. So it looks like he's got this genotype, which is to increase risk of type 1 diabetes, and this genotype, which is to increase risk of type 1 diabetes. But I don't know what about the HLA panel? So for the HLA panel, he definitely has a lot of risk variance for highest odds of autoimmune disease. So I definitely see that the HLA panel contributed to him scoring high for the risk of diabetes, type 1 diabetes. But also he does have risk variance for type 1 diabetes in the diabetes panel as well. So it does make sense why he's scoring so high for the odds of type 1 diabetes. For Alzheimer's, he's got slightly below average odds for that. For multiple sclerosis, he's got below averages for multiple sclerosis. So probably no risk variance for MS and the HLA. Let's look that up. Yep, no risk variance for MS and HLA, which is really good. All right. For cancer section, no risk variance for breast cancer at all, which is really, really atypical. So definitely quite protected from breast cancer. 5 risk variance for testicular cancer at 14, and he's got 2 risk variance and all the keto G variants. So for testicular cancer, it looks like he's got some predisposition to it, but most Europeans do as well, so nothing too surprising. No risk variance for celiac disease, pretty good. 2 risk variance for GSS out of 16. Wow, that's kind of crazy. So, and these are not common either. So he has some really uncommon stuff going on here for GSS. So he's got some predisposition to Gerstmann Straussler Schenker syndrome, and these are not common whatsoever. So that's really interesting. This is one of the I don't think I've ever seen this before actually in any of the samples I've analyzed. So that's really crazy. No risk variance for Crohn's disease, 6 risk variance actually, but none of them are unusual, is what I'm saying, or important. No risk variance for Riefenstein's, no risk variance for Parkinson's. He's got 2 risk variance for Gilbert syndrome, but they're common, so pretty much nothing unusual. No risk variance for anything else. I'm just gonna scan through it and see if I find anything unusual. I don't see anything unusual. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. I don't see anything uncommon. So pretty much no risk variance for any of these conditions that I look for. The only condition that I found that was a little bit concerning is the risk variance for GSS, Gerstmann Straussler Schenker syndrome, where he's got 2 risk variants for that, and that's actually really, really weird. I was not expecting this whatsoever, and I was really not expecting this, like whatsoever. Okay, we can close this and go ahead and look at the monogenic results and see what contributed to the result and whatever. Go through it. So it looks like he's got a predisposition to warrior phenotype, definitely very interesting phenotype. So quicker dopamine reuptake, lower dopamine levels, higher stress resiliency, so lower attention and motivation, but higher ability to tolerate and navigate stressful situations. Definitely a very non-European genotype to have, but there's still plenty of Europeans with this genotype. For dopamine D2, looks like he has predisposition to intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptor sites. So intermediate predisposition to such conditions as bipolar schizophrenia. For 5-HT and serotonin, looks like he has a predisposition to intermediate levels of 5-HT and serotonin. So intermediate predisposition to such conditions as anxiety and depression. No alleles for dwarfism and FGFR3. Let's see what else. For autism, looks like he has a predisposition to lower odds of autism, which is definitely really good to see. So that's actually really good. I mean, I don't know how to comment that. Lower odds of autism is always good. For lactose persistence, he actually does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. So because of that, he is still scoring intermediate odds of lactose persistence because that's how my program works. But because so many people who don't carry it are still lactose persistent, but he's definitely has a predisposition to lactose intolerance, right? Because he does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. He has a slight predisposition to being lactose intolerant. Doesn't carry the variant for lacus persistens. Definitely very interesting, because he's from this time period. He's from the Iron Age, late Iron Age, and by this time, most people already carried this mutation. So it's very interesting that most people in Europe, I mean, not in the world, but most people in Europe already carried this mutation. So it's very interesting that he still doesn't carry it. For OXTR and the empathy gene, looks like he has a predisposition to higher level of empathy based on these 3 SNPs, which is definitely really interesting. Hemochromatosis, he does not carry any risk variants for hemochromatosis, so it looks like he does not carry the Celtic curse variants for iron overload and hemochromatosis. Alright. No risk variants for Alzheimer's and APOE. Alright. We remember he was scoring very low for PCOS, which is good. For cardiovascular issues, he has a predisposition to higher odds of cardiovascular issues. Okay, so based on these SNPs, he has a predisposition to higher odds of cardiovascular issues, which is kind of unfortunate. All right. For facial morphology panel, he's got European genotype in EDAR. He's got a genotype for longer mid-face length, higher odds of protruding nasal bridge, smaller nose size, and 2 genotypes for thicker eyebrows. All right. He does not have micropenis. Really good to see. A breath of fresh air, not having micropenis. He's got better performing muscles, likely sprinter rather than endurance athlete. He's got, I mean, he does not have photic sneeze reflex. And what else can I talk about here? I'm gonna skip the rest of this. For SCN9A gene panel, it looks like he does not have any risk variants for pain hypersensitivity. So out of 10 total variants, he's got 0 risk variants for pain hypersensitivity, which is really good to see. Okay, he does not have any risk variants for familiar Mediterranean fever, which is really good to see. And he does not have any risk variants for albinism, which is really good to see. Not albino whatsoever. MCHFR panel looks like he does not carry any risk variants for impaired folate metabolism or higher levels of homocysteine, which is really good to see. So his homocysteine panel is probably going to look good as well. Alcoholism, his risk score for alcoholism is a straight average, which is really good to see. Let's go ahead and look at the rare traits and diseases panel. So it looks like he has a genotype for high risk of glaucoma. All right, but I don't think this affects the score. He has a genotype for increased risk of rheumatoid arthritis. Remember, he was scoring very high for that. And he has a genotype for this, which increases the odds of several autoimmune diseases. But we don't see anything that's too concerning here, actually. It all looks pretty good. We don't see any rare conditions here. No, we see carrier of 2 risk alleles for neural tube defects and spina bifida. But aside from that, we don't see any rare conditions, which is really good to see. He's got 2 APOB risk variants for familiar hypercholesteremia out of 6 total, so he's still good, still in the good range. Okay. No risk variants for celiac disease in the HLA gene, which is really good. I feel like he might have risk variants for vitiligo in the HLA gene. Where's vitiligo? Yes, he does. He has 2 risk variants in here in DRB1. Yep. So he does have risk variants for vitiligo in the HLA gene. Because that explains the score for the HLA gene panel. All right. For Canavan syndrome, no risk variants for Canavan syndrome. HIV and AIDS panel looks like he does not have any risk variants for HIV and AIDS. He actually, unfortunately, the variants that have to do with protections from HIV are not in the file, so I can't really discuss that too much. For MTRR gene panel, looks like he does not have any risk variants for spina bifida and disorders of intracellular globin metabolism, but he does have 2 risk variants here, which is kind of typical. You typically will see around 2 to 3 risk variants for this panel in total. And for homocystinuria panel, he's definitely quite good. He's got lower homocysteine levels, really good stuff. So he's quite healthy when it comes to homocysteine levels. Definitely very good. For muscular dystrophy myopathies, no risk variants for that. No risk variants for edge and leukodystrophy either. For color blindness panel, no risk variants for color blindness. For FTO gene panel, there was FTO gene result up north. I mean, a little bit earlier, a couple minutes earlier, but I decided to skip that because I have a FTO gene panel, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit later. And looks like based on the FTO gene panel, he's got lower odds of obesity. Definitely a little bit predisposed to lower odds of obesity. He does not have any fat gene variants in FTO, and he also has all these other genotypes that lower the odds of obesity. So he's got predisposition to lower odds of obesity for sure. He's quite skinny. I would be quite surprised if this individual was fat in real life. Also because, in the late Iron Age, I feel like most people were skinny. For syncope panel, based on 3 S&Ps, he's got slightly above average odds of syncope. For bio traits panel, let's see, what can we talk about here? What can we talk about here? He's got a genotype for high odds of motion sickness, which is definitely quite interesting. And for let's go to the blood group panel. For blood group panel, most likely his blood type is either type O or type A. This is determined on the basis of 3 S&Ps. And these 3 S&Ps are that he most likely has blood type O or A. There's an S&P for high odds of all blood types besides A, and there's an S&P for likely not blood type AB. So it's kind of difficult to determine what blood type he is exactly from this information. But on the basis of this information, I would say he most likely has blood type O. When it's undecided between O and A, I'm always inclined to assume it's O, because O is just so much more common. So I'm gonna say most likely this individual has blood type O, and blood type O is actually edging out a little bit in this result, because it's 49 versus 45% for A, 49 for O, 45 for A. So I'm gonna say it is most likely blood type O for this individual. But you can leave your thoughts in the comments, what you think the blood type is, what you imagine it might be. Certainly, I enjoy reading your comments and responding. So I respond sometimes. I don't always respond. Sometimes I don't have the correct maybe knowledge, or sometimes I don't even understand what you write, to be honest. So I can't really respond. But when I do understand what you write, and when I do have something substantive to say, I always respond when I do. So please, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe, and of course leave a like and comment. Of course, also the link to download the raw DNA file that I was analyzing in this video will be in the description of this video. In the description of this video will also be the link to buy my trait predictor executable, which you can use to generate these health and traits reports, just like this report that I've been showing you in this video. You can generate a report for MyHeritage, 23andMe, or Ancestry file. Any microarray sequence file you can generate a report for. And in case you don't have the $25 for the executable, or in case you don't have a Windows or a Linux system, or you don't have like a virtual machine, or I don't know, you just don't want to learn how to, I don't know, whatever, you don't want to spend the money, whatever, you can actually just send me your raw DNA file, and I can run it through my trait predictor and send you your result. And that's only going to cost you $4 for one file, or $7 for 2 files. And the link for that option is going to be in the description as well. It's just like a Google Forms when you can upload your file and submit a screenshot that you paid to my PayPal, and that's it. I just check it and I send you your report by email. So make sure you check that out. Check out the description of this video. All the links are there. Thanks for watching. Once again, thanks for watching. Goodbye.